I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not her. The knock was soft, 2 taps, then another like she wasn't sure she should be there. I opened the door halfway and there she was. Ms. Raines. My landlady. Hair tied loose like she'd given up fixing it hours ago. Coat unbuttoned. Eyes carrying something that didn't belong to midnight. Sorry for the hour, she said, voice low. I just needed to go over something about the rent. The words didn't fit the moment. No one came to discuss rent at 12:05 in the morning. But I stepped aside anyway, and she walked in, brushing past me with the faint smell of rain and perfume. The kind that lingers in old elevators and expensive coats. The apartment was dim except for the yellow lamp by the couch. She glanced around, maybe to find an excuse for being there, then smiled like it hurt. You keep it tidier than most tenants. I laughed quietly. I try not to embarrass myself. She nodded once, hands in her pockets, shoulders tight. Her eyes drifted toward the window, where the rain had started again. I could hear it against the glass, steady and soft. For a moment we didn't talk. She seemed comfortable in the silence, or maybe she needed it to decide what to say next. I know it's late, she began, her voice catching. I was going over accounts and realized I'd made an error. In your favor, I hope, I said, trying to make it lighter. That made her smile. Small, uneven, genuine. No. Mine. Her gaze met mine then, steady and searching. There was something else there, not about numbers, not about rent. Something she was trying to measure, maybe even stop herself from wanting. You could have called, I said. I could have, she answered, not moving. The air between us had weight. She looked older than usual, not in a tired way, but in a way that made her seem real, fragile under the calm. Her fingers brushed a curl behind her ear, slow, distracted. When she looked at me again, she didn't look away quickly enough. You're up late, she said. I couldn't sleep. Why not? I don't know. I paused. Maybe waiting for something. Her eyes lingered a second too long. Then she looked down at the table, where her hand rested beside an unopened envelope. Her nails were short, neat. She tapped the paper lightly, once, twice, before exhaling. I shouldn't have come. It's unprofessional. You can stay a minute, I said before I could stop myself. Her hand stilled. Then she looked up again, and this time didn't smile. You shouldn't say things like that. The words were gentle, but they landed heavy. She wasn't angry. She was warning me, or maybe herself. The rain got louder. The window rattled once. Neither of us moved. She finally sighed and sat down on the edge of the couch, pulling her coat tighter around her. I sat across from her, the table between us, though it felt smaller than it had a moment ago. She looked at my hands, then back up, and asked, You ever wish you hadn't said something? Even when it felt right at the time. Yeah, I said. Pretty often. She smiled faintly. Good. Then you'll understand when I say this visit never happened. Her hand brushed the table as she stood. Slow, deliberate. The envelope stayed there. She reached for the doorknob, hesitated. For half a second, her fingers trembled. Then she turned halfway toward me. Good night, she whispered. But she didn't leave right away. The hallway light from outside spilled across her face. Soft, almost golden. Then, behind her, another sound broke the silence. A door down the hall opening. She froze, and for the first time all night, her eyes actually showed what she was feeling. The sound of the neighbor's door creaking open down the hall snapped everything tight, like a string pulled too hard. She stepped fully into the frame, shoulders drawn in, pretending to fix her coat while I watched, half hidden by the dim. Good night, she said again, quieter this time, then slipped out before the neighbor's footsteps reached the landing. The door closed. I heard her heels fade, then stop halfway down the stairs. She waited there for a few seconds. I could feel it before finally leaving. I didn't sleep after that. By morning, the envelope was still on the table. Inside was a note. You've been overpaying by $80. My mistake. Don't mention it to the office. And below that, a rushed line. Forget last night. I read it more times than I want to admit. She came by again a week later, in daylight this time, holding a clipboard and wearing sunglasses she didn't take off. Her hair was neat again, composed, like she'd rebuilt herself piece by piece. "You got my note," she said. "I did. Good." She started to write something, pen scratching too fast. "You're all set for next month." Her voice was businesslike, but it cracked slightly near the end. She kept writing though, even after there was nothing left to fill. I watched her hand move, steady, graceful, until she realized I was watching. She froze, then said, without looking up, "You shouldn't stare." "I wasn't. You were." She finally looked at me, one brow raised. "That's dangerous." I almost laughed, but there was something in her tone that stopped me. The next few weeks were a rhythm. Quiet hellos, short glances, nothing more. But something had shifted. Every time she walked through the building, I'd sense her before I saw her. That faint perfume, the calm voice down the hall. Sometimes she'd linger by my door as if she'd forgotten why she was there, then turn away when she heard me move. Once, I caught her in the lobby, phone to her ear, not speaking. When she saw me, she ended the call and smiled too quickly. "Just checking in on repairs," she said. But her fingers brushed my sleeve as she passed. An accident, maybe, and it stayed on my skin long after she was gone. It wasn't just the age. That was obvious. She was twice my age, with a life already lived. An ex-husband somewhere in the city, grown kids she rarely mentioned. Me, barely keeping rent steady, still figuring out who I was. It wasn't just wrong. It was impossible. And yet, there was something in the way she listened, fully, quietly, that made the world smaller. That night, I found her again at the mailboxes downstairs. She looked surprised, then smiled faintly. "You're up late again." "So are you." We stood there, both pretending to sort mail that wasn't ours. She leaned closer to reach a higher box, and the warmth of her shoulder brushed mine. Neither of us stepped away. Her hand trembled slightly as she pulled an empty envelope from her box. "Nothing," she said, half smiling. Then she looked at me, really looked, and for once, didn't hide it. "Good night," she whispered, but she didn't move. For a moment, neither did I. Rain again. Always rain with her. It started in the late afternoon, light at first, then relentless. I was making coffee when there was another knock, softer this time, hesitant. I already knew who it was before I opened the door. She stood there, damp hair against her cheeks, holding a small folder to her chest. "Sorry, there's a leak in the upstairs unit. Thought I should check yours." I stepped aside. She entered quietly, shaking droplets from her sleeve. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said. "You didn't." The room smelled like coffee and rain. She walked toward the kitchen, eyes flicking up to the ceiling. "Any dripping?" "Just the sound," I said. She smiled faintly, still looking up. Then softly, "Good." Her coat brushed my arm as she passed, warm against the chill of the room. I wanted to say something, anything to break the silence tightening around us. But she turned, and whatever words I had disappeared. Her hair was slightly undone, her lipstick faded. Not perfect, real. "You look tired," I said before thinking. She let out a breath of a laugh. "That's one way to say it." "I didn't mean—" "I know," she interrupted, eyes meeting mine. "You don't have to explain." She leaned against the counter, folder still in her hands, fingers tightening around it. "My daughter called," she said. "Asked why I was still working so late. I told her I was busy. But really, I didn't want to go home." The confession hung there. "You could stay until the rain slows," I offered quietly. Her jaw tensed, like she wanted to refuse but couldn't quite. Then a small nod. We stood side by side near the counter, the sound of rain steady above us. She reached for the mug near me, fingers brushing mine. Neither of us moved away. "Still hot," I said. "I don't mind." Her hand lingered longer than it should have. She took a sip, eyes half closed. The steam blurred the air between us. "I used to like storms," she said softly. "Now they just make everything louder." "What do you mean?" She looked at me. That quiet, searching look that undid me every time. You start hearing things you shouldn't. The tension cracked open. Not in words, but in distance. She took a small step closer. I didn't move. Her breath brushed my chin. Slow, uncertain. For a second, I thought she might close the space between us. Then a buzz. Her phone lit up on the counter. Lydia? Are you still at the building? She froze. The glow of the screen caught the edge of her face. Her eyes wide for a moment before she reached to silence it. I should go, she whispered. Neither of us moved. The sound of rain filled the pause, heavier now, like it was insisting on something. Her hand lifted barely, as if to fix the collar of my shirt. Didn't. It just hovered there. Then she stepped back, voice shaking a little. You make this harder than it should be. So do you. She almost smiled. Almost. The lights flickered, the storm growled outside, and for a breath, maybe two, it felt like the whole world leaned closer with us. Then she turned toward the door. But this time, she didn't take her phone. The storm didn't stop that night. It only changed rhythm. From pounding to whispering, like it was waiting. I didn't hear her come back. Just the knock. A single one, quick, uncertain. When I opened the door, she stood there again, soaked through, coat half off, breathing hard like she'd been walking fast. Her hair stuck to her cheeks, and her eyes, those eyes, looked like she'd finally stopped pretending. You left your phone, I said. I know. Her voice was quiet, uneven. That's not why I came back. She stepped in before I could answer. The door clicked shut behind her. For a second, all I could hear was the sound of the rain dripping from her coat. I shouldn't be here, she said, not moving. But I can't stop thinking about. She stopped herself, shaking her head. About what? She looked up at me. Wet lashes, jaw trembling slightly. About the way you look at me. Like I'm not. Her voice broke, soft and raw. Like I'm not too old to be wanted. Something in my chest shifted, sharp and real. I took a step closer, slow enough for her to stop me if she wanted. She didn't. You think I don't notice? She went on, barely above a whisper. The way you go quiet when I'm near? How you don't know where to put your hands? Her tone wasn't teasing. It was a confession, trembling at the edges. I don't want to make you uncomfortable, I said. You don't. She let out a shaky laugh. That's the problem. She took a breath and pressed her palm against the wall beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. The air between us thickened, charged, unsteady. Her hand lifted slightly, brushing a drop of water from her collarbone. My gaze followed it, and she noticed. You shouldn't look at me like that, she murmured. Then stop standing so close. Her breath caught. Say that again. Stop standing so close. But neither of us moved. I reached up, almost without thinking, and brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. My thumb lingered near her temple, a second too long. Her eyes fluttered shut for a heartbeat, then opened again, glassy and fierce. Tell me to leave, she said. I can't. She exhaled, a trembling sound caught between relief and regret. Then you'll have to deal with what happens next. Her fingers found my wrist. Not pulling, not pushing, just holding. Her lips parted slightly, like she was about to speak, but the words never came. The space between us narrowed, slow and deliberate, until her breath brushed against my chin. Then, a loud bang from upstairs. Pipe bursting. Water dripping fast, relentless. She flinched, pulling back just enough for air to rush between us again. Both of us breathing hard. I should check that, she whispered, still holding my wrist. I nodded, voice gone. But she didn't move yet. Next time, she said, eyes on mine. Don't let me stop. And then she was gone again. Leaving the door open, the smell of rain behind her, and the taste of almost on my tongue. She didn't come by for 3 days. The building felt different without her. Quieter, hollow, like someone had taken the air with them. Every time I passed her office door, the light was off. By the 4th night, a note was slipped under mine. Repairs upstairs tomorrow. Don't be here. Mr. No signature needed. Her handwriting was smaller this time, like she'd tried to make herself disappear. But I stayed anyway. When she finally showed, it was daylight again, bright, ordinary, the kind that should have killed whatever had been building between us. She was in work clothes, hair pinned neatly, sunglasses hanging from her shirt. She looked composed, but her movements were too sharp, too careful. You shouldn't be here, she said the moment she saw me. I live here, she exhaled, frustrated. That's not what I meant. I stood there, watching her unpack tools from a bag she clearly hadn't touched in years. Her hands shook slightly when she reached for the wrench. You're avoiding me, I said. I'm doing my job. You left without saying anything. She froze mid-reach. Because someone saw us. The words hit harder than I expected. Who? She didn't answer, just looked up, eyes tight, voice low. Lydia, my assistant. She was in the hallway that night. A pause. Rain starting again outside, soft against the window. She asked me if I was seeing one of my tenants, she continued. Said she'd heard something, laughter, voices. She mentioned you by name. My stomach dropped. And what did you say? Her eyes flickered, regret, maybe shame. I told her no, that you were just a kid who needed help with rent. A beat, a small, cruel beat that changed everything. I laughed once, quiet and dry. Right? That makes sense. She winced. Don't do that. Do what? Make me feel like I lied for the wrong reason. You did, I said, softer than I meant to. The silence after that wasn't clean. It pulsed, full of things we couldn't undo. She stepped closer, slowly, until she was right in front of me. I could see the tremor in her throat when she swallowed. I didn't lie to protect myself, she said. I lied because I didn't want to ruin you. The wrench slipped from her hand and hit the floor, loud in the small room. She didn't even flinch. Do you have any idea? She whispered. What people would think? What they'd call me? I reached for her before I could think better of it. My hand grazed her arm, just enough for her to stop shaking. They'd be wrong, I said. Her eyes lifted to mine, wet, angry, alive. You don't get to decide that. She stepped back, just barely, but her fingers caught my sleeve before she did. It wasn't a mistake. It was an anchor. For a second, it felt like she might pull me closer again. But instead, she let go, turned toward the door and said quietly, If we keep doing this, it won't end well. I didn't stop her this time. But as she walked away, she left her sunglasses on the counter. And that, somehow, felt like a choice. The next evening, her office light was on again, the first time in days. I stood outside the glass door longer than I should have, watching her through it. She sat at her desk, back straight, pen in hand, but she wasn't writing. She was staring at nothing, her jaw tight, her other hand pressed against her mouth like she was holding something in. I knocked once. She didn't move. Then, after a long pause, her voice came through the door, quiet, steady. It's open. I stepped inside. She didn't look up. You shouldn't be here. You've said that before. And you never listen. Her tone was calm, but the pen in her hand trembled slightly. She set it down, exhaled, then finally met my eyes. What do you want from me? She asked. Truth. She laughed once. Not cruelly, but tired. You already have that. Then why are you still fighting it? Her eyes flickered, then softened. Because I know how this ends. I moved closer, slow. She didn't pull away, but her shoulders tightened. Tell me, I said, how does it end? With me regretting it, she whispered. And you pretending you don't. Silence. Only the hum of the lamp between us. I stepped closer still, close enough to smell her perfume. Faint, familiar, something that had lived in my apartment since that first night. You're shaking, I said quietly. So are you. She turned toward me, and the movement brought us almost chest to chest. Her breath caught, eyes flicking down, then up again. You have no idea what this does to me, she said. Every time you look at me like that. Then stop giving me reasons to. Her lips parted. A half breath, a near word, and then she laughed softly, the kind that sounded like surrender. You're too young to talk like that. Maybe, I said, but I'm old enough to know when something feels real. Her hand lifted, slow, deliberate, and brushed the collar of my shirt like she was fixing it. But she didn't stop. Her fingers lingered near my neck, tracing the edge of my jaw before falling away. Say something, I murmured. I can't, she said, almost to herself. If I do, it's over. Then let it be. That broke her. The distance dissolved. She leaned forward just enough that her forehead nearly touched mine. Breath unsteady, eyes glassy. I'm so tired of pretending, she whispered. Then don't. Her hands found my sleeves, gripping lightly, pulling me closer. Almost. The air between us trembled. And then she stopped, inches away, still holding on. Her eyes searched mine, wide, wet, desperate. If we cross this line, she said, voice breaking, I can't go back to being your landlady. Then don't be. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Then she smiled, small, pained, real. Her hand rose again, brushed my cheek once, slow and tender, and then she stepped back. No, she said softly. Not like this. And though she turned away, the weight of her touch stayed. The kind that doesn't fade. A week passed before I saw her again. The rain had stopped. The building smelled like paint and dust. Repairs finally done. Silence restored. She was outside, by the garden wall, checking her phone under a weak patch of sunlight. No coat, no folders, no guard up this time. Just her, simple, tired, softer somehow. When she saw me, she hesitated. Not the kind of hesitation that says don't come closer, but the kind that says I've been waiting for this and don't know what to do with it. You fixed the upstairs leak, I said. Eventually. She smiled a little. You stayed out of trouble. I tried. The pause after that was long but comfortable. The kind of silence that isn't empty. It's just full of everything neither of us could say yet. She tucked her phone away, arms crossed loosely. I thought about quitting, she said. Why didn't you? Her eyes lifted to mine. Because running doesn't change what's true. I took a step closer, slow enough to give her space. And what's true? That I care about you more than I should. She said it calmly, like it had stopped being a secret. I didn't move, didn't smile. I just let it sit there, heavy and fragile. You think I don't? She let out a small breath, half a laugh, half disbelief. You shouldn't have to. I already do. Something eased in her face then, a quiet acceptance. She looked away for a moment, then said, You know, the first night I came by, I didn't really come to talk about rent. I figured. She laughed, shaking her head. You always knew too much. Only about you. That earned a real smile, small, shy, unguarded. The kind she'd never let me see before. The air was warm, the light soft against her skin. She stepped forward until we were close enough for me to see the faint lines near her eyes. Proof of a life lived, not something to hide. You still think this is wrong? I asked. She looked up, meeting me without fear this time. Maybe, but it feels real. Her hand found mine. Not in a rush, not hesitant, just honest. Her fingers slipped between mine, steady, sure. I don't know what happens next, she whispered. Then we'll figure it out. For the first time, she didn't correct me, didn't step back. Instead, she leaned her forehead against mine. A quiet, human closeness that said more than any perfect line could. Her thumb brushed my wrist, slow and absent, grounding. You make me feel seen, she said. And you make me stop pretending, I replied. Neither of us needed more than that. We stayed like that for a long time. Two people who had tried not to find each other, finally giving up the fight. When she finally pulled back, her smile lingered. Next time, she said softly. No midnight knocks. Deal. She started walking toward the door, still holding my hand until the last possible second. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?